Good day, good evening, y'all. I've had a rough week. My dear boy passed away due to a UTI, and we didn't see the signs until late, so he's no longer with us. And I've been mourning him and also thinking of the good times I had with him. And I feel there's a lot that can be said about him, and I'm going to get into this video because I believe he wants me to surge forth and be a positive influence on this world in any way I can. I know if he was alive right now, he'd be mewing in the background, but he unfortunately died, and we buried him in the desert. And well, this one's for you, buddy. This one's for you, Tortellini. So the song I made actually recently, it was reflective of battling the sorceress, and he was there on the, or his presence, the feline presence was there on the shoulder of the hero. So yeah, I might make another video about him. We'll see. But this video, it's a video I've been thinking about for a long time, and I didn't really know how to introduce it, so I decided to bring a bunch of different ideas together in one video. And it's a video on etymology and syncretism. Etymology being the study of words and their roots, their origins, where they come from, and then syncretism being able to take words and put them together and come up with reasons as to maybe why they sound the same or similar and where the words derive from. So they go hand in hand. So we're starting off with the trio that was presented to me by guest speaker, that I think are so indicative of the world, the word we commonly speak, English. It's evocative of angels, angel, English, and you have many words within that have curious connections. So here we have grimoire and grammar. So grimoire is a witch's spell book, and it's nearly the same pronunciation as a modern word for the whole system of a language. And many aspects of the English language are rooted in witchcraft, especially when you consider the outer space mythos. That's a whole witchcraft in of itself. So then spell, so as in spelling words, and yeah, to cast a spell. It's interesting that it's the same word. And cursive has curse as the root, which is something a witch might cast on somebody. A curse being usually a negative thing. You don't want a curse on you. Is the root for the word for smoothly flowing, swirly connected writing. It is notable that it seems in many public schools nowadays they've ceased teaching children cursive, but it's a huge disservice as there's many letters and interesting things people can come across in their lives that are in cursive. So it behooves you to learn cursive. It's interesting that we call it that, though. So maybe curses are originally in cursive. It reminds me of calligraphy. It's this fancy way of communicating a message or an idea, spell perhaps. So going forward, I love this idea. Amazing, the word amazing. Corn, that connection. So you think of corn, we think of corn mazes. Maize is another word for corn. And I actually think this is a good spelling of it. I'd vote to change the spelling of amazing to this, because it's a word I use very often, and it's not negative. It's an ambivalent word, which I love. Amazing, meaning that there's so much depth to what we're seeing that it's something that you say. It's just like wow, and then yeah, here it's evocative of the maze, corn maze, and corn. There often are literal corn mazes, so it's just such a cool word there, and I find that one always be interesting. Onion. Okay, this one, I think it was a Bro Sanchez. He told me, or he mentioned this one in one of his earlier videos. You go on and on and on. There's so many layers. There's so many layers to an onion. It goes on and on and on, which is a fun way to think of where the word came from, where the word derived from. And God spoke this place into reality with his word. So it's just a really fun one, all the layers you see of the onion and where that word came from. This one's kind of interesting. This one's interesting, awesome and awful. So this idea of awe, and if you're full of awe, it's not a good thing. But if you have some awe, it's ideal. So interesting here. These comparisons: maple donuts, maple candy, maple coffees. Pretty much anything maple flavored is awesome. But then the hangovers, too much of it, right? That's awful, right? And then I wouldn't like beer, but but then you see the extreme of it. Yeah, people drinking too much beer and partying is kind of gross. Fireworks are great, but then those are awesome. Some are, but then having to deal with your dog when they've gone crazy, it's too much. So there's this idea in life that there's kind of this balance. There's this equilibrium. Awesome, some awe, not awful, too much. Otherwise, it leads to chaos or just uncomfortability and irritation. And that's what we find. This one I thought was really interesting. Ramble, the idea to ramble, in essence, means that you're saying a lot without necessarily having a point, or you're being garrulous. You're saying too much. People will roll their eyes when you're rambling. But it's interesting in that if you do look at astrology, Aries and then Taurus, Aries is the first sign of I suppose it'd be the genuine year, spring. And when the real new year begins, Jesus' birthday, if you will, I think it was either in spring or fall, it wasn't in winter or summer. Um, Many ideas are abound for both. But yeah, the ram is the animal that represents spring, Aries, and then the bull represents Taurus, and they also represent the upper and lower half of the brain. So there's a lot of connections you can make there to that ram bull. Yeah, that one's interesting. Okay, this one, um, pharmakia, as in pharmacy that we see everywhere. People who give us medicine. Pharmakia is sorcery, in Greek. So the word sorceries is translated from the original Greek word pharmakia, from pharmakua, which means to minister drug-related sorcery. So I have taken antidepressants when I was a teenager, and I didn't know about Orange 33 land. I thought I was going crazy, and I was in many ways, but I would never have done what I did had I known all this evil secrets about this place, and I would have changed my ways and been gone right to Jesus. And so this is a big one, I think. And if you are using pharmaceuticals, do everything you can to get off of them. I obviously don't want you to do it all at once if you are on quite a few, because you could be harming yourself. But do everything you can to get off of them, and then find someone who knows a lot about herbs, or start learning a lot about herbs yourself. Better yet, do that, and then bring those herbs into your life in a good way. Mushrooms, there's so many wonderful things that you can bring into your life in a good way. Um, I've used cordyceps of late. I use lion's mane right now for mushrooms, and then yeah, I take a few different types of herbs in addition to cannabis, and I'm getting more and more intelligent with my self medication. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I mean, drinking coffee is part of it's there's a complex to it. But yeah, you don't want to be getting something in a pill where you don't really know where it's from. It's highly processed. It just doesn't sit right. My partner, she suffers from semi-frequent migraines, and she'll take Excedrin, which is from a pill, and it kills her stomach. And yeah, it's just, and then she's finding stomach-based migraines, so it's like the medication she's taking to ease the pain brings the pain. So yeah, pharmakia is messed up. I mean, One of the basic ones I always talk about is aspirin is from willow bark. Okay, so go literally to the bark first before going to some little cosmetic pill. And don't make excuses. Try and learn about it. God gives us time to study all these things, and just because you have a smartphone, it's always a secondary source. Go to these things yourself. So this one's interesting. I made a video on this in like kind of a negative way, but I wanted to bring it in a positive way. But yeah, God couldn't be physically with us, so he gave us dogs. And notice dog spelled backwards is God, and they both show unconditional love. So yes, it's interesting that God and dog are opposite spelling, and in the Michael Jackson poster, I think the dog is supposed to represent like Satan or something. But I think it's interesting in that, yeah, they are the most common companions of us, and there's just something about it. It's peculiar. I don't know. It could be some weird spell that we're under, but I don't think so. I think that they are beneficent, wonderful creatures, and something special about that. This is one I've been meaning to talk about for a long time too. I mentioned it maybe once before. But yeah, obviously, part of what deterred me from looking into Christianity in full, reading the Bible myself and all that, was this idea that there was this pantheon of Greek gods. One of them's named Zeus. He's apparently like the highest, the most elevated of the Greek gods, and throws lightning bolts, um, controls lightning, and has those certain powers which are of Satan, right? And then Jesus is so close to Zeus in the name. Um, but I think Zeus was actually after Jesus. Of course, Jesus is Alpha Omega. Um, but and that's the whole thing with Zeus, is he was a plant. It was make this pantheon of Greek gods and have the one leading them be the real Messiah, so as to detract from the Messiah's belief in the Messiah, the message of the Messiah. So I actually, yeah, this is something that I've come to recently, and it makes perfect sense to me that, yeah, of course, they lied about the ancient Greeks, and Jesus is the Almighty, and Zeus is some satanic derivation of that. So they say Jesus means Hail Zeus, and that's just nonsense. So then, this one's fun. I like this idea. Rainbow is bow is in the name. Obviously, it's a bow, or yeah, has that arch-like shape. It's supposed to be reflective of It is reflective of the firmament. It's this sign we have. It's such a wonderful thing. I've always loved seeing rainbows. I've always known that they're good omens, good signs. It reflects that you're getting precipitation and temperate weather, and it's good. It's good. It's a changing world, and the idea of leprechauns going to the end of the rainbow to find good fortune. I mean, you shouldn't care about fortune, of course, but yeah, rainbow is reflective of that, and bow is in the name. Um, oh, sorry, back on like the kind of God, dog, Jesus stuff. Something I forgot to mention. I didn't write this one down, but Hebrew, where the language from whence these religions have come or have been derived from. Hebrew, he who brews. I mean, that's so straightforward. His story, history. Um, okay, so then airplane. It's just telling you what it is. It's a flies in the air over the plane or solid foundation, flat Earth. It's in your face. It's just, yeah. It doesn't. That always struck me, even when I was young and was completely like ensconced in, just what they taught us. NASA, outer space, dinosaur land. Um, this stood out to me. I was like, why do they call it a plane? Plane's a flat surface, and I don't know, because it was true, and it was telling you all the long time. Jesus has always been with us. The truth's always been there. It's the world and all of Satan's things. Like if you read about Job, Satan's built capacity to go throughout the world. It goes all places, and you just have to be able to know the signs and the symbols and the behavior, and then it's easy to see. And then you learn more and more of the word. You start doing understand each of the commandments and then apply them to your life, and repent for the ones where you feel like you're doing worse or you've done worse. And doing that thoroughly, I think, is going to do wonders for you. So Don't take my word for it. Try it yourself if you haven't already. Um, Astronaut, and just it's not spelled this way, of course, but it's just in the name. And this is like one working with a set, and yeah, they really are underwater, and you saw bubbles in some of their shots, and it's just it's in it's in your face. Once you know the truth and you can discern for yourself, all this stuff just it comes across as like a big joke. It's like a big stage, and it's amazing that there's little actors and these evil people, but there is, and um, I think some of them feel like Werner von Braun, that like on their tombstone they could say something like Psalm 19:1 and have their ass covered, and maybe they will. I doubt it. Um, I doubt it. I think the whole thing was unnecessary, and we could have easily had, and we still can have, um, in a world that's under all of one word and understands Jesus's word, and lives for the truth and doesn't pretend that all these falsehoods are true, like dinosaurs and uh, planets and so forth. We have a world that lives in the truth, lives in the spirit of truth. So just a crazy world that seems to lie to us at all sides, but it's also biblical. It's written. So this is an interesting one. The word of universe, right? So obviously outer space connotations. Um, so right then and there, it's a little shoddy. But the only reason I hold this one is the idea universe, one verse, like I said. If we're all like Jesus Christ, or the Jesus' word of loving thy neighbor, and living in the spirit of truth, and loving God more than anything, like even the hardships, loving all the hard part. That's what I'm learning more and more as I get older, is learning to love the low moments and the difficulties, because it's like I can appreciate more. Like this, like right now, I'm going through mourning my good friend, my cat, that I feel like I took damn good care of, but at the end of his life, I could have been more attentive, and I could have got him into the hospital sooner. And it was just, and then this world, making it's expensive to get vet care done, and just any medical is expensive. So I had that reluctance because I don't have much money. It's just shitty, it's a shitty situation. But if we're living under one verse, and we have people that will provide medicine for free, and that's what I want to do. Basically, my response to this event for me was, I'm not going to like sprint through this information, but I'm going to study the anatomy, study all the various ailments that we can get, and then be able to treat somebody for anything, because I can't handle the thought of somebody in my life having an illness that I can't diagnose. So when it comes to herbs, it comes to understanding the anatomy, all the various ailments, the commonalities of them, and so forth. And yeah, so back on point with the universe. One world, single, unified, integrated world. Note that world is also word, one world. It's really interesting. We make these connections. That unites not only different philosophies and ideas about the world, but different practices for growth and development as well. Yeah, I like loving our differences, but also being under one word, I think is really important. Um, yeah. So then, who knows if this is true? This could easily be some, Masonic. And look, it doesn't. You think this is thousands and thousands of years old? I mean, it could be. First civilization on Earth, but they could easily have gone to, like, I've seen pallets and pallets of bricks like this. This is like a couple day job of laying these bricks here, and then throwing some in the middle, and throwing some broken ones. It's not hard to make this whole thing come to life. And like, it's interesting how like they're all virtually the same height. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't, the foundation doesn't look quite right to me. But let's just pretend was the first civilization on Earth. So it's just telling. It's like Earthlings, so that's a little connection there. And then I wrote nationalism is satanic. Yeah, just this idea that we are one tribe at heart. It makes sense. Jesus' message was to the Jews and the Gentiles. It doesn't matter who. If you're living under the Ten Commandments, if you're abiding by them, um, and you're living by Jesus' word, then you're not gonna be an error, and you're gonna love your friends, and you're gonna sit there while they make fun of you or smite you or whatever. and then you're going to wait there, and then some of them will turn, some of them will be better, and you know, turn it will come to Jesus, and some won't, and it's sad, but um, it makes sense. And yeah, just this idea that I don't know. I've always hated the idea of tribalism. I think people are tribal, but obviously the Bible it tells you that. Um, but that was also a lot of that had to do with the Old Testament and before Jesus came, and it's like now we should all be one tribe for Him, one kingdom, and then maybe that's heaven, and then maybe that is it. You know, He has His wrath to come back here and um, conduct because of all the heinous nonsense that people have been committing everywhere. And yeah, it'd be nice to be one tribe again once I guess we've weeded out the evil people and we're all whole and doing good works for each other. So then the next word, discovery, disc in the name of discovery, or disc in the word discovery. So here's a solar disc. Um, and yeah, disc, the idea of disc. So that was huge for me. Might have been the biggest visual realization was actually seeing and saying that the sun and the moon are discs. They're not spheres. Okay, so what is told to us, right? What is told to us about the moon is that it was an asteroid that hit planet Earth and then through gravitational pull formed into a perfect sphere, which is what comes from gravity. Gravity forms these perfect spheres, which is just it's nonsense, obviously. We got a lunar disk here. The sun being okay, they say 93. Of course, propaganda is 93 million miles away, uh, and enormous, and the source of all light in our solar system and all this nonsense. But the reality is that they're disks and they're close and they're about the same size, and I see them as God's eyes. That's just my interpretation. And then the lunar being the feminine and the chilling and the cool light, and necessarily cooling light, and the solar being the more loud and bright. And yeah, it's just they're the necessary components of life here are these spotlights, and um, it's really interesting studying them in that way and knowing and seeing the day moon all the time now and just laughing about how my silly youth and how I didn't obviously know that what they told us was wrong. Um, but yeah, and then yeah, Earth disk here, so that we basically live on a disc. I mean, I don't. That's something to dig into. Is how much depth? Like, yeah, it depends where you are regionally. I don't believe a lot of what we were being told about like this idea of shayol and like just you know how much digging should we actually do? What is the nature of hell? Is it this kind of excessive digging? Like Earth in itself, is it this idea? This idea of mother and then father is outside of Earth, and we're to be birthed once we die outside of the firmament. The firmament being the great mother's belly, and that the father's on the outside. I don't know. That's not literally said in the Bible as far as I can tell. So I'm not. I'm just that's just an idea that's come up. I've heard before, but it's really interesting. And then I wanted to end. I want to end on this pa root versus ma root. Just these roots and the kind of words that you see around them. So these obviously aren't all the words, but I thought these were interesting ones that have the pa, or I think patriarch, papa, ma versus the mama, matriarch roots. So let's start with the pause. So pa, papa, patriarchy, parents. So I often do think that it's the dad as the head of the house in some ways, even though what I saw growing up was the opposite. But if you think about it biologically, yeah, the males are gonna. It's just the way. It's the way we are. It's like we move around more. We're more active, I guess, just skeletally. Like we're skinnier generally speaking. We're like we have the tight skin, and yeah, I don't know. Patient, that could be like doctoral or obviously being patient. Payment I thought was interesting, just like the way we are out in the world, the way that we engages with society is often with the pause. Paper, like, right, like, okay, parliament, as a government essentially. That word is a pa word. Partner, interesting. That's often, you're a partner in a firm or something. Like, there's all this formality, it seems, to the pause. But then you have Pan. This is the Satan, basically. It's this child who never grows up. Pain. Okay, interesting. Paul. So many of us, myself included, believe Paul is a false apostle. It's the Pa root, which is interesting. Got his story, of course. Paint. Pavement. Again, this hard structural connection. Past. Park. Pal, came out similar to partner. Pal. Pants. Pagan. Like Paul, pagan. That's very interesting that both of those are the pause, and that's what we're trying to go against. Path, pass. Palace, as in like the palaces that the dragons will be living in the end times. People that I've met in my life who are super wealthy, like, it seems that their houses are dead. Like, they probably don't even live in them. They have an underground base, or they have underground connections with other evil Satanist people. Paladin, this person fighting, a warrior of sorts. Part, and then we'll go with the Maz and just see the kind of different things we find, or that I found was interesting, or words I included and whatnot. Mama, matriarchy, of course. Maternal and maid. So maternity, obviously being a mother. The maid, the idea of cleaning is being the motherly thing, but then so often we find the squires doing it. Just this world is so peculiar. Marriage. That one's really interesting because, yeah, it seems like it's the more motherly aspect of that. That's what's being sown. Like, the mother had to write off on it. Marriage, ma. The mother had to, yeah, I guess I could say, like, write off on it. Male and male. So it's just interesting that the common word for the opposite gender is a ma. And then mal afterwards, I think, as in the French word for bad, which you'll malpractice, malpass, so forth, just means bad, which is interesting that it's the ma. We have the Eve connotation, um, the Eve idea, or just this idea that's present, I think, throughout a lot of Christianity, that women are somehow, like, even if in, like, tighter readings, are like subservient, but they're not. Like, it doesn't make sense. We're totally in equilibrium, and I think that's the truest Jesus teaching. And if anything is saying otherwise, then I disagree. A guy that I've been following a lot, listening to a lot lately, Doug from the Without Spot or Blemish, or I guess now it's the Jesus Not Paul Acts Ministry. He talks about how basically you can't stand Paul, and how Paul, one aspect of Paul, how, like, women can't talk in the church, but then, like, he has kind of the middle ground, and maybe I'll come to this later, but basically this idea that, if we're living in these bad times, women and children are ruling over us, so men need to take authority, but women are technically equal. They just have to be, like, I don't know, it's on the same wavelength. So, um, I think that I don't know the genuine truth yet. I have more to understand about this world and study, but what I feel at heart is that you have to be able to criticize your partner, and they have to be able to criticize you completely, and there can't be too much domineering in either direction. But situationally, you're going to have leaders, and that's just, you accept that, and you don't try to get on the other person's ship too much, so to speak. So again, okay, going forward, Mason, Martin, those go hand in hand because all Masons are free Martins. It's just it's what you see. So a Moss son, Mason, someone who is usually it's a brick mason, like someone who builds. But these people are Freemasons, so they just steal everything pretty much. Mate, match with partner, again, has more of that. It generally has a more intimate lean to it than partner does. Mars, which, like a Roman god, similar to Pan, not Satan themselves, but Mars is a god of war. Magic, so yeah, women and children ruling over us. Magic is involved. And then apostles Matthew and Mark, which are, in my opinion, some of the better sections of the Bible, the Matthew and Mark sections of the KJV Bible that I've read. Material, of course, Maz, the maker of material. Market, of course, mall, all these things. Like this should be like a ma root. Mass, it's interesting that women are often concerned about their weight. Make, made, manufacture. So yes, all these ideas behind making things. I'm just, growing up being mesmerized by all these musicians, most of them being free martins, and now knowing they're truly biological women. It's just, I don't know. That's something that comes to mind for me, is like, and then just so many things in this world, clothing that I've worn that I would have really great difficulty making myself because of, not that I couldn't, but just my bigger man hands, I'd have difficulty doing it. I could definitely do it, but seeing the feminine, svelte, uh, more like delicate, intricate fingers work makes sense. That things are made by more things are that are like more intricate are obviously made by women's hands. It just makes sense. A man is a ma root, but that's just a curiosity. I thought it was worth mentioning though. I wrote magic and mage before, magic before. Matriculate's one I didn't write down, but to enroll somewhere, to be at a university, matriculate or something, you need, again, the mother. It's like this kind of securing of passage. Um, map, the mother knows the knows the regions. Maple is in a tree. I couldn't think of, maybe I don't know why I couldn't think of any PA trees. Poplar, but yeah, I couldn't think of any PA trees. It's not, poplar's obviously not, but it kind of has that sound. Marathon. So you don't have many smaller terms words for that, but marathon as in a long form run that always just seemed wrong to me. If you look at other mammals, I never see any mammals running for miles and miles on end. And that is some weird human creation, and I don't know, probably steeped in fake history too. March, which I thought was interesting. The beginning of the year, MA has that Ma root. Mars obviously talked about that, so that goes hand in hand with Mars. And then I thought interesting, our first lady. I'm from the United States, Martha Washington. So it has that ma root, mother. They want you thinking about them as like your parents instead of your own family. Um, and then Martha Stewart as this, or in our present day, like has been this, she's does everything, decor, food. I mean, just knows how to take care of a house, so to speak. But I mean, who knows? It's Hollywood. And then day of the week, Marty, Tuesday in Spanish. Um, and then I know Mardi Gras, Tuesday. Then they call it Fat Tuesday, and women are generally speaking the more the cushier sex because they're supposed to have a baby. Of course, there's a reason. So we have our ups and we have our strengths and our weaknesses as genders that are good and the way they're supposed to be. And but yeah, that's not what this is about. This is just about trying to understand the genesis of words, and I want to continue to make videos like this. I'll come at you soon. Let me know what you guys think about this video, what things you'd like to delve into more, what you thought was interesting, and yeah. God bless you all in the name of Jesus Christ. Look forward to making another video soon.